In this video, we're going to talk about my favorite subject, which is inventory and inventory items. So first I'm going to take you through setting up an inventory item and then kind of the use cases around it, a couple things to consider when you set them up. So what is inventory, right? Inventory when it comes to QuickBooks is a quantity and a value that you hold on hand, okay? Quantity, definitely. Value sometimes, which we'll talk about at the end here. So essentially, if you buy product and you put it on a shelf somewhere or on a truck somewhere, right? You keep inventory by truck location, but you have a quantity on hand that you want to maintain, and you want to be able to see how many you have on hand, you know, how many have been sold, how many have been purchased, right? How many do I have on hand right now? Okay, so that's kind of inventory in a nutshell. If you buy product and you don't hold it on hand, you just purchase it to order, right? So a customer says, I need a water bottle from you. So you go out, you buy the water bottle and you send it to your customer, or you drop ship it. Maybe inventory is not the best feature to use in here, right? Because it's really meant to be used for if you are holding product on a shelf somewhere and you need to know how much product you have on the shelf, if you can fulfill orders, if you need to purchase more. Okay. So when we go to our lists and our items list, so we have inventory on our items list. Of course, we also can go to our inventory center, but I'm also a little old school in here, right? The list has service items and discount items and things that the inventory center doesn't have. When it comes to setting up a new inventory part, so we're going to go down to item and new and choose inventory part. So right now I'm in enterprise, so there are a lot of fields available. I wanted to kind of show you the fields that can be available with QuickBooks, right? So first of all, you give it an item name / numbers, what they say here. That item name is a free type name. You can call it whatever you want. Some of our customers use some kind of code, right? Some of our customers just call it a water bottle, right? Because it's easier. So you have to remember when you're doing things like filling out your estimates or filling out your invoices, this name is what's going to be the primary area where you fill it out. Okay. They do have find and replace in enterprise, but you do kind of similar to when you set up your chart of accounts, you want it to be something you can understand. Okay. This name does not have to be present to your vendors nor to your customers either. This can be an internal name only, so just so you're aware. We can make it a sub item of. So if it's a sub item of, you can see kind of similar here, bath and vanity fixtures, and then it has all the part numbers of bath and vanity fixtures under there. Ceiling fixtures, the same thing. What's nice about that is, again, if you're trying to add it to a transaction and you don't know the code, right, you can type bath and then it gives you everything that's underneath bath and vanity fixtures, so you can choose the appropriate product. Okay, so sometimes the sub item of is really important. The one thing to remember with the sub item of is that it does actually create an item. And notice even in this file, in this sample file, there's a quantity of -1. But really, when we're dealing with these header items, that's what they're called. When you're dealing with these header items, they should have 0 quantity. They should have no transactions tied to them, right? Because they're not a real product that we sell. The sub items are the real product. Okay, manufacturer's part number, so you can fill in the manufacturer's part number for who your preferred vendor is if you want. Where that's helpful is, again, if we're sending a purchase order out to the vendor, we don't have to say water bottle. We can use their part number on the PO. So there's no confusion there. In Enterprise Platinum Edition, you do have the ability to have barcode scanning tied to your item. So you can fill in a barcode number here. And again, it's alphanumeric, so you can put in stuff there. You do have the ability to have QuickBooks create the barcode numbers for you. If they've created it for you, you should see a QB and then the number there. Okay. Moving down, we do have multiple units of measure turned on in Enterprise And I believe Premier, you can have multiple units of measure, and Pro, I think you can only have single units of measure. So what does that mean? It means I can buy by the each and sell by the, or buy by the case and sell by the each type of thing. Or maybe I buy by the barrel and sell by the box, or, you know, who knows, whatever it is. But you can have those multiple units of measure set up and defined. Moving down to the description. So the description here is the description on purchases and the description on sales transactions. Again, if you have different information that you want to provide to your vendors, make sure to be very specific when you fill it in here, as well as on the sales side. These are searchable when we use the find and select on when you create estimates or create sales orders. So make sure that, you know, any details, if you say, I need my salespeople to be able to easily find this item, I don't have a field for it, stick it in the description. All right, our cost down here, when it comes to inventory parts, our cost is a stated cost, right? So it's a default cost. This is not going to be the actual cost for this part necessarily, right? So you may have a average cost that's different than this cost. But why you should fill this in is that it does default to that cost when you fill in things like purchase orders. So you go to create a purchase order for a vendor for a water bottle, the cost is $15. The purchase order or the vendor sends over a quote or something like that for $17. You have in your system already set up, well, wait a second, we expect it to be $15. Why is there a difference, right? It allows you to kind of check your vendors in a way. So it's good to have it in there, okay? But it does not affect your average value for your items, right? Your average value is going to be based on what you actually pay for the items. Okay, so we have a cost of goods sold account generally when we're using inventory parts. When you sell the part, right, your sales numbers go up, and then your cost of goods sold also goes up. So that you show, you know, I had a $30 sale, I had cost of $15 on that sale. So you want to make sure to choose an appropriate cost of goods sold account. Anytime you're dealing with inventory, I've been trying to think of a time when we don't have it flow through a cost of goods sold account. There aren't very many, but most likely your COGS account should be a COGS account. Okay. For the preferred vendor here, you can set up a preferred vendor. There is only one that you can set up in QuickBooks Enterprise. We have some kind of workarounds for setting up extras in the custom fields. But, you know, setting up the preferred vendor is important because then when you auto create POs in Enterprise as an example, then it'll pick up that preferred vendor for you. Okay. Moving over here to the sales price. So you can set a default sales price. Again, this is going to be your baseline sales price. If you're using price levels or price rules or anything like that, you would have discounts or markups based off of this price. This is just the base price. So, you know, Joe walks in off the street, doesn't have any customer history with us. We're not even going to put Joe in the system. We're just going to set him up as a counter sale. This is the price he gets. Okay. You can decide whether or not this is a taxable or non-taxable sale. Okay. Or maybe for resale, some other tax codes in there. Then we have our income account. So again, this is when I sell this product, which account do I want to hit? Okay. So let me choose one, I guess. Down below here, and I'll come back to markup and margin. Down below here, we have our asset account. So what happens here, right, when you purchase the inventory and you're holding it on hand, it's on your shelf in the warehouse, it's an asset to your company, right? You don't expense it out at the time of purchase. You expense it out at the time you sell it. So while it's sitting on the shelf, it's an asset to your company, okay? So I choose inventory asset account. In Enterprise, we have the ability to do minimums and maximums, right? So if I get to 100, bring me back up to 1,000. So that's a little different. In Pro Premier, you'd see just a minimum, okay? So global reorder point, I also have it in here as global because I do have multiple inventory sites turned on. So I'm just going to say 100 and bring me back up to 1,000, okay? So the inventory site information, again, if I had multiple warehouses turned on, I can set reorder points per warehouse. All right, so you can do that. It's enterprise again. All right, moving down the fields on the side here, because you can never forget these fields. These are really important. So you can add notes for these items, right? So if you wanted to keep some internal notes, again, this is another place where I've seen people add in other vendors that they purchase from, right? If Foster's Lighting's out, go to, you know, Fourlane or whatever it is. And those notes you can see right here in the inventory center. So if you're going through the inventory center, those notes would be visible. All right, so we have custom fields. Custom fields are really important to be using as, you know, again, as needed. They allow us to track information on items more than what the item has set up here, right? So everybody, I've seen tons of different ways that people use custom fields. You can make them a free type field. You can make them required. You can make them drop downs in enterprise. So 1 week. So it's really important to use these custom fields. So if you're thinking, I need to track this additional piece of information on my items, then this is a good field to use. Sometimes I've seen people who use the custom fields instead of using the sub items, the header items, to use what we call item classes maybe. Okay, so you can set up classes tied to items in enterprise, I know, but or item groups maybe, right? It makes it easier when you're doing, you know, mass ordering. I need to order everything from this group of item. So again, custom fields are a really powerful way for you to be able to filter your data, filter your reports, or even use that find and select, right, that we have. So I can search through just custom fields for a certain thing, and it'll allow me to, you know, mass fill in information on transactions. Okay. The other thing in enterprise is that on the inventory reports, so the stock status by item report is an example, you can filter by those custom fields now as well. That started in 2016. They have a spell check. Okay, so now we're getting to the markup area here. So you can have different markups, all right, and this can be set globally in your preferences, and then at each individual item level. So you say, what type of markup is this? Percent over cost, amount over cost, right? Or use default, right? So you can see the default, that's what we have set up in our preferences. So if the cost is $15, the sales price is $30, it's 100% markup with a 50% margin. All right, now if I change this to $40, notice it does the calculations for me. Okay, if I wanted to have 150% markup, it does backs into my sales price, right? Okay, so down here you have a couple of scenarios. Now this is again set up, you see I have some defaults in here set up in your preferences, but now I can change it for this item. So what I'm saying is if the item cost changes on a purchase, right? So when I buy my product on a bill, if the cost changes, what do I want to do? So it has the ability to always update the item cost, which means it would update this stated cost here, this default cost. Never update it. Ask if you want to update it. Okay. Sometimes that ask can get pretty annoying. So, you know, when you change the price, it pops up that box and it's about a third of the screen and it says, do you want to change your price on your item? That's where this comes in play. So I can say always update the cost. So always update the stated cost if my price changes. If you are in, you know, in a growing company, and as you start growing more and more, the cost of your product that you're purchasing from vendors is going down, right? Because you're buying in bigger volumes. Perhaps you may want to say always update the item cost, because then it's continuously going down, right? So your default cost is continuously going down. But it's also probably the majority of our customers go through and, you know, once a month or once a quarter, most likely, and get updated price lists from their vendors. So that's a little bit, we have a different video on how to mass update your price list. Okay, so if item cost changes, do you want me to change the cost? Next is when item cost changes, always update the sales price. That's the other option, right? So keep my 150% margin and update my sales price for me automatically. And then, of course, if this were an assembly item, you have the same option for assemblies. So it can get a little bit, scary in there. You don't want to allow people to, update your prices automatically or, fix your margins or anything like that. So you can get a little bit scary in there. So make sure you have your, user set up appropriately. But it is something, if you have a price that changes all the time and you need to keep your fixed margin, something to consider. Okay. In Enterprise, I also have the ability to have lot or serial numbers on. So in here, if you have lot numbers turned on, which I do in this file, you also have the ability to say, don't warn me on this item for lot numbers, right? That's saying, don't remind me that I need to fill in the lot number field, or do warn me. So it's not a required field, but you can have warnings set up. Okay. And then we have quantity discounts in Enterprise. This is if you have the price rules turned on under the Platinum Edition. So you can say, if I buy 5, give me, or if they buy 10, give them a 5% discount. If they buy 20, give them a 15% discount. Okay. Okay, so these are all the fields available with inventory parts. So we think about the different transactions when it comes to inventory parts. We purchase inventory, right? We receive inventory in. When we receive inventory in, it's going to debit our inventory asset account. So our inventory asset account goes up, and then it credits accounts payable because we owe someone money for that. Okay, so on the purchase transactions, this account down here, this asset account, is what is affected by those. On the next type of transactions that you can do with inventory, right? You can adjust inventory. When you adjust inventory, you're deciding which account is offset. So basically, you're either raising your asset or lowering your asset, right? I had 10 in the system. I went out and did a count. I only have 5. I'm lowering my asset. And then I choose on the inventory adjustment which account I'm adjusting against, right? Usually it's some kind of inventory loss or shortage account. Okay. Then we have our sales transactions, right? So it's the next kind of, you have vendor credits and you have some other transactions in there. But of course, your sales transaction is the next big step when it comes to inventory. So when we sell an inventory part, there's 4 things that happen behind the scenes, not just 2. So the first thing that happens is inventory gets relieved, right? Our inventory asset goes down. So let's say we sold a water bottle. Our inventory asset would go down by $15. Okay, so it's a credit there. Then our cost of goods sold account goes up by $15. So we sold it. We have a cost now that we're recognizing of $15. Then our sales account also goes up by $30, right? So we sold it for $30. We have a little margin in there, $15 margin. And then, of course, the customer now owes us the $30, so our accounts receivable goes up. So that's how you kind of see each of these accounts in play in the inventory transactions. And we have other videos on this in more depth. I just kind of wanted to run through that with you real quick. Now, I have had customers who need to keep track of inventory, so a quantity on hand, but they don't want to have a value at all. Okay, so where I've seen that is I have a customer who does fulfillment for a chain of gas stations, and so they purchase product. They purchase POS systems, barcode scanners, they purchase computers, and all this product that goes into the gas stations. And then when the gas station needs that product, they ship the product out to each individual gas station. So the asset there, the inventory there, is not my customer's inventory. It's the gas station's inventory, right? The gas station pays for it. My customer's just holding it in their warehouse until the gas station needs it. So in that case, they want to know a quantity on hand, but not a value, okay, which you can do. So essentially when you do that, the cost is zero, the sales price is zero, except for in this customer's case, they actually charge a fee per item shipped, right? So we do have a sales price, but the cost is zero. When we receive the items in, it's a $0 item receipt or $0 bill. When we ship the products out, there's no cost affected, no asset value change. There's just a quantity change. So I have seen people do it that way. We also have customers who use the inventory system to track their internal inventory costs. So they are a large manufacturing firm, and they have a separate system for manufacturing, let's pretend, but they want to use QuickBooks to be able to track their internal supplies. How much paper they have, how many, pens, how many pieces, all the internal supplies that they use. They want to be able to track that, and they've used QuickBooks to do it. So in that case, what they do is we actually don't use an asset account down here. We go in and we set it up straight to a account for office supplies or office equipment or something, right? So what happens is they purchase the item, okay? So I bought a $100 water bottle. So my cost, right, because it should be hitting an asset account, but instead, since I have it hitting an expense account in the asset, my cost goes up for $100 at that point. Okay. Then when they use the item, it's usually a $0 sales receipt. But when they use the item, right, it's going to do two things. It's going to expect to hit the asset, a credit to the asset, and then it's going to hit the cost or the cost of goods sold account, a debit to the cost of goods sold account. So we want the cost of goods sold account also to be hitting office equipment. So it'll debit $100 to cost of goods sold, and then it'll credit $100 to cost of goods sold at the time of use. So it's a wash, right? So that it keeps it that my expense that hits my P&L was when I purchased the product. And in this company's example, they do want to expense it at the time of purchase. Okay, it's immaterial cost for them. Okay. Now, what's nice about it is even if you sell it at a $0 sales price, you can keep track of the cost, right? Because it'll still have that $100 purchase or $100 sale, cost at the time of sale. So because you're keeping track of the cost in here, you can, what I've had them do is set up a customer for the different departments or maybe even the different internal users, right, who would be using these supplies, so that we can run reports at the end of the year to see how much did each individual person use when it comes to supplies. If Freddie used $2,000 worth of supplies and everybody else is only using, 100, we need to see what's going on with Freddie. Sorry, Freddie. Okay. So inventory, this is why I love inventory, because inventory is one of those places where you can really use it to your advantage to get to your end goal, right? Always when we're dealing with QuickBooks, we want to know what's the end goal, and then we look at the different pathways we can take to get there. Okay, so those are inventory items. Make sure to check out our other videos on other items coming up, because it's really important to understand all item types in QuickBooks before we, start to set things up.